In this video I want to use the QBOT with V3 to spruce up a quilt that has already been made. So here's a quilt right here that my wife Shelley made several years ago, probably prior to the QBOT's existence actually. And it's just got some hearts on it and has very little quilting at all. It's only been stitched in the ditch around each one of these blocks. And these hearts are put on here with their raw edge applique, so the stitching line for each of the hearts is inside the heart itself. So it's been in a pile and it hasn't ever really been hung up. It was a nice little experiment, I guess. And I'd like to finish it today with some cross hatching. What we're going to do is in the whole field of the quilt, we're going to put cross hatching. And then inside the heart, we're going to use the trim to boundary function and put in a nice little design in each of the hearts. And we'll trim it to the boundary, and that will accentuate the field of the heart. So let's get started. All right, I'm back. I've got the quilt loaded up onto the frame, and I've done some preparations to it, to the raw edge applique, to make sure that I don't sew over the raw edges. So I've folded all the edges over, and I've taped them down with just some regular tape, and that'll keep them out of the way when I do the cross hatching. So let's get started with the first step, which is going to be the cross hatching. I will go into fill quilting, and I've removed my foot on my machine here so that I don't have so that it's not in the way, and I can choose the points very, very nicely without anything getting in the way. Let's choose our outer boundary first, and I'm just going to go around the boundary and choose points. Because this is a finished quilt, it already is a little bit wonky in places. It's not perfectly straight, so I'm going to select, when I select my outer boundary, I'm going to select points maybe every ½ inch to inch around the boundary. And if there's any parts that are really kind of crooked, I will be sure to be detailed around those so that I don't get overstitching into the little borders that are around that main field. All right, so I have the outer boundary selected. Now I'm going to select all of the around each of the hearts as my inner boundaries. So I have 9 inner boundaries to select. This will take a little bit of time. All right, so we're done with the 12th heart. I thought there were 9, but there were actually 12. And that took quite a bit of time to do. I hope it's worth it. We're finished with that, so we are going to press no to set another inner boundary shape. We press no. And we're going to play with the spacing and all of the parameters on this, because I think 3/8 of an inch spacing on this is going to be kind of tight. I think it probably deserves something more along the line of 5/8 to 3/4 would look good. I'm also a little bit concerned because I didn't construct this and I really don't remember what the batting is. I'm a little bit concerned of it coming together and then things mismatching as more and more of the cross hatching goes down. So I want to keep it a little bit on the light side as far as the density goes. So let's go over here and we'll set the spacing to 3/4 of an inch to start with, and we'll change the direction angle to 45 degrees, and we'll see how that looks. Now look on the screen here, you can see that there's a lot of mathematics going on this particular piece. There's lots of cutouts, and to get an accurate solution or the proper solution for this, sometimes the math doesn't always add up and there can be some lines missing. And if it's a really complicated design, there might be a line that actually goes through one of the spaces. So you want to double check this. It's just a function of placing all of these lines and all of the connections properly with such a detailed, so many detailed knockouts. So you can see there that, oh, I've got two lines missing right in this area here on the left, that little chevron shape. Now, how do you get around that? It can be as easy as changing the spacing by maybe 5/1000ths of an inch. And there we've eliminated that line, but on the right hand side we've missed it just a bit. So I'm going to use my finger and just move it manually until I see the lines, all of the lines there looking proper. And now I do. So and I also then look at my spacing, and I'm at 0.736. So I'm 14/1000ths of an inch away from my target of 3/4 of an inch, and that's about the width of a thread. So that's good enough. So I'm going to say I like this. I like that it's a right angle square kind of crosshatch. And I am going to stitch the outer boundary, but I'm not going to stitch the inner boundaries because the inner boundaries are going to be hidden underneath the raw edge applique. So there's no need to do those inner boundaries around the hearts. And I'm not concerned about what it looks like from the back because it's a wall hanging. It's never really going to be flipped over, folded over, just doesn't matter to me. So I will raise up my needle and I'm going to say done. And then I will move to the start point, which is in the upper right hand corner. So I'll help it along there and I will reattach my foot to the machine. And also thread my needle, which came unthreaded when I was selecting points. So I'll just get that threaded up. Move to start point. And press go. Shoo! Made it around the border without that champagne thread getting into the red border at all. So, yay QBOT. All right, so we're done with the cross hatching, and I'll tell you, it looks really, really great. So the next thing we're going to do is do some stitch in the ditch around that red border, and maybe put a little something, maybe some kind of scallopy thing into, or a ribbon looking thing into the outer white border. And then we are going to finish off by using the trim to boundary function in QBOT v3 to fill the hearts with something not too detailed, but just to tack it down so that they're not so puffy the way they are right now. So let's get to it. All right, I've made a couple adjustments to my sewing machine here. One thing that I did was I removed the white thread because I don't want to tempt fate when I do this stitch in the ditch around this thin red border. it's a little bit wavy and I don't want to have any chance of the white thread coming into the red border. So I switched to a monofilament, and I also mounted the monofilament on the spool pin on a horizontal spool pin so that the monofilament comes straight up off of the spool. The spool is mounted in a horizontal fashion and the thread just comes off the spool that way, rather than mounting the spool vertically and then having the thread come off and then twisting. One thing with monofilament is if it becomes twisted over time in the bobbin case, weird things can happen when the hook tries to grab the monofilament. It's stretchy and it's better to just not twist it. The second thing that I did here is just made sure that my quilt top, or in this case just this little piece, is set up in a way that I can go all the way around the perimeter. I have a long reach on this machine and I just wanted to double check, and I had to move it a couple of clicks in toward me so that I could go all the way around the perimeter. It's better to find that out now, do a little check, rather than start setting points and realize that you don't have the reach to do it. So I'm going to set some points. I'm over here on my tablet. I am in line quilting, and I have my reading glasses on so that I can choose these points precisely. Even though I have monofilament, I want to do a good job to get it in the ditch. And I will just go around and set points. And there is a little bit of wobbles in this straight line. So I am going to set points as precise as I can at an interval that makes sense for the amount of waviness. So I'm just going to keep setting them pretty precisely here. Okay, so we've got that all done. I'm going to place my foot back onto the machine. Just like so. And now we're ready to move to the start point. I'm not going to do any kind of scallops or pin cushion or anything on this. I've chosen so many points that the pin cushion would have this, really kind of frilly effect that wouldn't add anything to the quilting, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to press go and we'll get this thing quilted out. All right, so that finished up the in the ditch quilting, and it looks really good. I probably could have used a white thread, but I'm glad I used the monofilament in any case. Now I'm going to change my thread and reposition the quilt so that I can do the top and bottom, or as this is hanging, it will be the sides, but on the quilt frame, it's going to be the top and bottom borders, and then the side borders. So I'm going to do the top and bottom first, and then I'll do the sides, and then I think I'll have to do some quick line quilting in the cornerstones, or in the corners, just to do a little quick block, which will be pretty easy. All right, I think I found a design that I like. It's within the Fast Tracks folder on the QBOT, and I'm going to do this upper border first, and we'll see how it goes. Let's go into pattern quilting. I'll lower my foot, and underneath on this quilt, the binding, because this is a completed quilt, little quilt, the binding on the bottom is actually inside. If I try to draw it in the air here, the binding on the bottom is here, and then it goes around the top and it stops up here. So it's a little bit further inside the area than the top. So I'm going to be careful not to choose too close to the top edge of my binding, because if I use that, then it would go through and quilt on the binding on the bottom. So I have to stay in quite a bit on that. I'll just look at it underneath, and it looks like I have to stay in an extra kind of 1/4 of an inch. So when I choose my points, I'm going to select this point like right about in here as my upper boundary, and I'll maintain that as I go across the quilt here. And for consistency on the white, I'll stay in about the same distance away from that red sashing or that red inner border. And we'll say done. I don't want to set an inner boundary shape. I'll go into my fast tracks, and then I'll pull in the scallop here that I wanted. And that looks pretty good. I need to modify it. What I'm going to do is scale it in the Y down just a bit, stretch it just a bit to the edges there. Come down. Let's see, maybe nudge it just a little bit. I think that looks pretty good. Okay. And we'll press go. All right, so that looks really good. And what I'm going to do now is advance the quilt and do the bottom border, and we'll do the same design. At this point though, I want to save this pattern because I did do non-proportional scaling, and I want to kind of keep that consistent, and I probably can't remember what I did anyway. So I will save it now as border demo. And now when I advance the quilt, I just have to pull that in, and I'll start at 100% scaling, and that way it'll be consistent, and if I have to tweak it from there, I can do that. All right, we're advanced on the lower border here, so I'm going to make sure that I come in about the same amount, so I don't sew through my binding on the back. And we will pull in the design that we've already saved. That will be in our saved patterns. And we'll pull in border demo. I will modify it. And it looks like it already came in at 100%. So that's good. That means that the piecing was done properly. And the size is basically the same. I chose basically the same area, which is a good thing. Let's take a look at it. It does look like it goes over the right edge just a little bit. So I will go into non-proportional scaling and I'll pull that in just a hair. Maybe go to 99.5%. And it looks like I could nudge it down just a bit. And that looks good. Because again, I chose a buffer zone around. I didn't actually choose the ditch. So if it looks like it's really close to the red line on this, I'm still okay. I've got about 3/16 to 1/4 of an inch buffer, so I won't even see that on the quilt. So it looks good. I press done and then move to the start point. I just noticed that I still need to do the quilting that I'm going to do inside those hearts. So before I take it off the rack as it is now and rotate it 90 degrees to do the top and bottom borders, I'm going to go back and fill in those hearts using the trim to boundary feature on QBOT V3. And I'm going to do that quilting first. It'll just be a little bit easier, and then I'll rotate it and finish off the borders. All right, so we're ready to quilt inside these hearts, and we're going to use one of the most powerful features in QBOT, and QBOT's filled with a lot of powerful features. One of them, and the one we're going to use, is the trim to boundary feature. And what this does is allows us to pick our outer boundary in pattern quilting, any boundary, any type of boundary, any shape of boundary, place a design in that boundary, and then when we choose trim to boundary, it will automatically trim that design to the boundary shape, no matter how complex. And we get to that choice through the modify routine when we press the trim button. We have the ability to trim to the top or right or left edge or the bottom edge, but right in the center there's a checkbox that allows us to trim to the boundary, which makes a really, really nice feature. So we're going to use that with our heart design here. And we will, let's just get started, go into pattern quilting, and we are going to set our boundary points. Now, I want to do this really nice, so I am going to be very precise when I choose my boundary points. It is a tedious process, but the end result for all eternity will be a very nicely quilted design. All right, so I've set my outer boundary. I am not going to do an inner boundary. And I found in my Fast Tracks designs, I kind of like the idea of doing some of these spirography type of things, these very geometric things, just because they kind of have a center, and then when they trim to the boundary, the end result will be kind of evenly balanced about the center of the heart. That's why I like them. So let me go in and let's do, for the first one that we're going to do, let's do this spirally, that one right there. Now I can see that on the left hand of the heart, right in this area here, that the quilting's not very even, so I'm going to modify it, move it over just a bit, expand it, just let it grow. Just a little bit like that. And that looks overall like it will do a nice job in covering the space in a uniform kind of density. But it goes beyond the boundary of the heart, right? So what we need to do is go press our trim button and then press boundary in the center, OK, and done. And look what happens. It automatically trims it to the boundary of the heart. It's just that easy. No magic. I'll put my foot back on the machine because it doesn't sew very well without it. We'll move to the start and we'll get this thing quilted. And you'll, again, always make sure that the thread goes through the hole in the foot so that you don't sew your foot to the fabric. Sometimes it's easier just to pull it with the bobbin thread one more time. There we go. And press go. All right, 1 down, 11 to go. And I'm going to do the rest of those in the same fashion. I'll probably choose a couple of different designs though to make it a little bit scrappy because all of the heart fabrics are a bit different. There's a collection of fabrics in there. So I will alter the designs amongst the different hearts and then quilt those out, and then I'll be ready to quilt the top and bottom border and finish those cornerstones, and then we'll be done with this little wall hanging. Here's a look at the finished quilting inside the hearts using the trim to boundary function. Everything looks really neat. That spiral on the right looks great. On the left hand heart right there, that was an edge to edge that was trimmed to the boundary. It's a really powerful function and complements, again, the cross-hatching in the background. All right, so I've just finished doing all of the borders on this quilt. I did the top and bottom border, which were the long borders, and then I rotated the quilt 90 degrees, which is the kind of the way it hangs, and I did the top and bottom borders again. So all of the borders are now complete. And that leaves me some cornerstones that are unquilted. So what I'd like to do in this case is not use a block design, because most block designs are meant for like a 4 or 5 inch block up to a 10-inch block, and if you shrink those down into a 2-inch square, they're really dense and they don't look that good. So I like to use line quilting, choose the boundary, add some pin cushioning to put in a star shape, and then call it good. And it matches the density, the overall density of the other quilting on the quilt. Let's go into line quilting, and I will set my points. So I set a point, and I'm just going to do 4 points like this. Come down here and move over just a bit there. I'll say done. And now I'm going to do pin cushioning here. So I just pin cushion it in a little bit more. Starts to take this kind of shape, which is fine. And that's what I'm going to put, that little star shape, 4-pointed star shape or flower shape, into this area. I am not going to choose to sew the straight lines. I don't want to sew the border. I just want to sew this little star shape. So I am ready to move to start. And then I press go. Trim up those things right at the end. And now I will move over to the other corner, and I will do the same thing. So first I will set some points. Go into line quilting, set point, set point, set point, and finally set point. Pin cushion. Oh, too far. That's what I want. Move to start point. And we are just about done with this little quilt. So I hope you enjoy using the crosshatch feature on little quilts like this, where you have maybe something lying around that just needs a little bit of help, a little bit of texture to finish it off. So I used the crosshatch quilting, and then I did the pattern quilting, but using the new trim to boundary feature, which is a great feature to use. And then I quilted in some borders and then finished it off with some line quilting in the cornerstones. It's a great way to finish up those little projects and move it from that one pile of not ready to hang up to the let's put it onto the wall and let the world enjoy it. So use those features, enjoy your QBOT V3, and until next time, happy quilting.